I address you tonight as a citizen of humanity. We are faced with the very gravest of challenges.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Live from the Plantation. I'm Spartacus 2.0, a.k.a. Jerry Metcalf. And with me, as usual, upstairs on his own prison phone, is Lucifer 777.
Hello.
Today we're going to be discussing visits, or the lack thereof of them in U.S. prisons. Most specifically in Michigan prisons, because that's where we're at. So, that being said, Seven, get us started.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Emphasis on the lack thereof. If I'm not mistaken, second to actually getting the release date, visitations is the most anticipated event in the MDOC, in the prison system, right?
Yep, so, I agree.
Yeah, right. Since this COVID era, right, used to have like 7 visits per inmate, and we used to be out there for probably 9 hours, 10 hours tops. Like it's like 9:30 from 9:30 at night. Since the COVID era happened and shit like that, it dwindled down. Like you have to sign up to GTL, and then you have to schedule 2-hour slots, and now you can do them back to back. So they didn't. If I'm not mistaken, they wanted to do that from the jump, though, right? Have our people sign up for the shit, and they didn't want people just to be coming up there.
Oh yeah. Big business. It's the prison industrial complex. It's all about money. Private industry.
Most definitely. So I mean, this is dwindled down now. It's hard. It's hard because people like most people, family are not as tech savvy, you know. Like my grams, I haven't seen my grams in a long time. She's not as tech savvy, so she can't go on DTL and can't it's hard for her to schedule a time slot because she don't even know what the hell she's looking at, you know. So,
yeah. I just went through that with my mom.
It's like Chinese arithmetic, you know. So
yeah.
So they really putting a damper on second most anticipated event to a guy that's incarcerated, you know. So
a few other things I'd like to touch on too.
Most definitely, go ahead.
Well, I've been in prison for 28 years. I got locked up when I was young. I don't have any children, but I have plenty of nieces and nephews. You know, I've not been able to meet any of them. They don't consider a niece or a nephew my immediate family member, so I'm not allowed to see them. If they're underage. So I have all these nieces and nephews that I've never met. They don't know me. They couldn't come see me. They're keeping me in prison for multiple decades, 3 decades for sure. Then they're going to kick me out into society, but I have no children. And no family members that are going to relate to me because these nieces and nephews, I'm going to be a stranger to them. How could you not want me? Yeah, how could you not want me to meet my own nieces and nephews, my own blood, my own family? It's all designed to destroy our communities, all of it. It's insane. Another thing I'd like to bring up is, I always see on the news and the newspaper articles and all this shit, they always talk about all the drugs are smuggled in prison through the visit room, right? Well, during COVID, our visit rooms in the entire state, they were closed down for almost 2 years, a year and a half. There were no visits, but our drug epidemic inside of our prison system was the worst it's ever been, the absolute worst. So, turns out, the drugs are not coming in through the visit room. Well, then they try to say, well, it's coming in through the mail. So they switched the way the mail is done during the same time period. Now, no physical mail comes into our prison. None. So if it can't come in through the mail.
Copyright.
And it can't, all the mail's photocopied. You get a photocopy of it. So if the drugs can't come in through the mail, and they definitely couldn't come in through the visits because there were no visits. We couldn't see our family for almost 2 years at all. So How did they get here? How did we?
Who else
How
murdered it?
how was our? Yeah, of course. The government
Right.
employees, which is who it's always been, and they always defend. They act like this shit doesn't happen, or they quietly get fired when they catch one. But
Definitely.
the state does everything in its power to discourage in-person visits, further isolating us from society. After decades, they keep us in prison for decades, and then one day they want to kick us out and tell us, you got to be a normal citizen. Wait a minute. You've just had me in prison for decades, never allowed me to even see my own. Yeah, never allowed me to even see my own family, to hug my own nieces and nephews. Now all of a sudden you say, go out there and be a normal person.
Most definitely.
Just like when soldiers go to a war zone, they're only there for a year. But when we come back, we know that they have PTSD. And they're in a war zone, it's high stress. Well, prison is just like a war zone. You're in a high stress environment. You're stressed out nonstop, 24 hours a day. Hell, and when I say that, you say, well, you're sleeping. Well, yeah, you're even stressed out then because every little sound you wake up wondering, am I about to die? Or is someone going to try to rape me? Or is somebody robbing me? Or whatever. So you live in a super high stress environment. You do it for years and decades. Then you don't even allow you to meet with the community on a regular basis, to meet with people who want to come up and see you and say, hi, I want to hug you and hold your hand and treat you like a normal person. Oh, and when your family comes here, the staff members treat your family like shit. They treat you like you're one of us.
Like shit, like they here.
Yeah,
right.
like our family members should be. Right, like our family members are incarcerated. And then they got all these fucking useless rules. Tons of useless rules. One time my mom put her arm around my shoulder, and they came out and told me that she was touching me in an overly sexual manner. We're talking about my fucking mother. My mom. Who the fuck's mom touches them in an overly sexual manner? What the fuck kind of people think that? I mean, how twisted do you have to be to think something like that? That's the jailers we have.
That's crazy, right?
Motherfuckers we have watching us. Crazy. So go ahead.
Crazy, bro.
I've ranted and raved for a while.
Speak of it. No, you good. You good. They need that. They need that pressure on them, man. Because they need to see. They need you to paint that picture. They need to see this type of shit, right? And speaking of that, right? I haven't seen during COVID. I haven't seen my wife in that 2-year span, right? And finally come up here and shit like that. We behind like a plexiglass and shit like that. You got to wear the mask. Got to get tested. Like most people don't like getting shit stuck in their nose and shit like that. So it was already traumatizing to her, coming up to driving 4 hours, coming up to here, getting stuck in the nose, then have to sit behind the plexiglass and stuff like that, right? So again, I haven't seen her in 2 years, so it's overwhelming emotions when I see her and stuff like that. So I'm not even being conscious of we being watched and stuff like that. So I greet my wife like any normal husband would greet his wife, right? So now we only out there for 2 hours, right? Within an hour and a half, I'm not really thinking about what happened in the beginning of the first initiation of the visit and stuff. So they come out and cancel the whole visit, right? Cancel the whole visit. Say you was too handsy with your wife, right? They pulled me out. The CO Brown lead me and her have our disputes and we be beefing and stuff like that. So she come out, she's like, yeah, what's wrong with you, right? I'm like, what you mean what's wrong with me? She's like, well, you can't be doing that. I'm like, what you mean? Like you married, right? I haven't seen my wife in 2 years, right? What you expect me to do? What type of I'm supposed to restrain myself from seeing my wife? This is love of my life. When I see her, I want to grab her, I want to hug her, I want to kiss her, right? And you can't even do that to somebody that they allow you to marry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible.
Now she got to drive back 4 hours.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about, the no affection. So You're in prison. Wrap
Easy.
your mind around this, Seven. You're in prison, right? You cannot touching anybody in prison is a no-no. For instance, you can never touch an employee. If you accidentally bump into one, it's an assault. And I mean accidentally. Like if I'm walking backwards and not watching where I'm going, and I walk into an officer, I'm going to get charged with assault. So I can't touch them.
Yes.
And you can't. Convicts don't touch each other. I mean, you know, you're in a very violent place with a bunch of violent, weird people. So you can't. I mean, so you live in an environment where touching is wrong. Then the only time you get to feel somewhat normal is if you go on a visit and you can hug or touch whoever you're seeing, and they want to even eliminate that. So wrap your mind around the idea of being in a place for decades where you have no human contact. None. No kissing, no holding hands. And then you've got to get thrust out into the world. And they wonder why convicts are so fucked up. Prison isn't about rehabilitation. Prison is monster factories. When you do that, you're building monsters. Because you're building people that are scared to be around other human beings, and they're angry at the system for making them that way. Maybe even psychopaths. I mean, but it's a system that's designed to make people worse. How could you take away? You know, they should be encouraging visits. You should be encouraging members of the community to come up and want to sit and talk to people and hold their hands and just have normal interactions with them. And there's lots of people in the community who would like to do this. You know how many people ask me, "Can I come see you?" And I have to tell them no. So yeah, plenty of people ask me if they could come and visit me. I mean, all the time. It's one of the first things people ask. "Hey, can I come up there and see you?" And I have to tell them no. I turn people down almost every week because they tell me I have to have this small list of people. I can only have so many people on my visiting list. And it's just another method. They say, well, it's for security reasons. We're screening people. But visit rooms operated for 100 years without all these screens and security reasons. They operated just fine. But it's just all designed to keep people away. So.
And they got protocol in place for all that shit, right? They in the fence behind the fence inside the building for one, and then they get patted down several times before they come in here. They shake their hair down, they check the wire, like the under boob, all type of shit. So what is security? What's the security risk?
Yeah.
No security risk in play at the.
Yeah, the risk is very low. You know, looking at it risk reward, the risk is very low, but the reward is very high. The reward being is that you can keep the men and women in your prisons sane and normal.
Right.
And we know the reward is worth it because in other modern societies where they've went away, they've abandoned the barbaric prison systems of the past, like countries like Germany or Sweden
or Mexico.
People, or Mexico. you're encouraged. Yeah, Mexico. Yeah, or fucking half of South America or Africa. You're encouraged to keep strong ties to your community, so when you go out, you're accepted back into your community. But when you're stuck in a prison, and then the community is not allowed to see you for decades, and then when you come out, how do you expect them to think? They don't know you anymore. They haven't seen you. You're a pariah. You're kept at arm's length at best.
Definitely.
So how do you expect the American convict to reintegrate when he's been held apart? And they say, well, that's your punishment, being held apart from society. It wasn't supposed to be a punishment.
No,
punishment
no,
is barbaric.
It's not.
It should be rehabilitation. Who gives a fuck about punishment? We see how good punishment. They used to punish me all the time when I was a kid. What the fuck good? Look how great that worked.
Most definitely.
Punishment
Oh,
doesn't work.
And I didn't get punished at all.
Right. You need rehabilitation. If in those countries that I listed, when they go to prison, they go there with the idea of we are going to make stronger bonds in the community. We're going to help this person become a better version of him or herself, then bring that person back out into the community and embrace them. But that's why they have such low recidivism rates. Michigan,
Exactly.
I'm not sure what our recidivism rate is right now. I think it usually floats somewhere around 60 or 70% of the people that get out of prison are going to reoffend. But over in Germany, less than 1%. Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Of the people who get out reoffend.
Most definitely.
No,
Even the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst, right? I mean, they're killers. I mean, everybody. The crime is irrelevant if you rehabilitate the person. Now, granted, there are like serial killers and serial rapists and people who are just evil. You can't rehabilitate a person like that. Their wiring is so broken it can't be fixed. But people who are in prison for situational crimes, violent crimes that are situational, or like the vast majority of people in American prisons are somehow, in some way, shape, or form, their crimes are drug or alcohol related.
Definitely.
Whether it be trying to get money for drugs or domestic abuse because the husband's drunk or whatever
alcohol.
Sure, and all that is an illness. You can fix almost all of that stuff. Time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes outreach with the community. It's like,
definitely.
I do the pen pal website things, and which we will do a podcast about one day because it's pretty funny some of the people that you meet on it. And one of the reasons why is because I want to remain normal. I want to talk to normal people. You might think, well, you're in prison. I'm surrounded by people. Right, but in prison the rules they're changed. They're no longer normal. Like I go to take a shit.
Guys on your top trying to watch you and shit.
Yeah, or I'll sit there and I'll have a full-blown conversation with 3 or 4 dudes that are brushing their teeth while I'm taking a shit.
Giving you eye contact.
Normal? That is not normal. But that is my reality. It's become my norm. You know what I mean? So when you out in the world, I'm taking a shit, I'm trying to holler at people, hey, what are you doing out there? They're going to think I'm fucking crazy.
I'm trying to concentrate. My dog. You got to chill, man. That's the type of shit we have to go through every day, all day. Social paths, and this bitch with the worst of the worst. I can't even tell you, like, the type of shit that people do. Like, I hate to say it, like, they have no, like, social, like, distance or social awareness when it comes to, like, personal space and shit like that. So guys would be on you, like, in the most inopportune times or in the most uncomfortable ways, breathing down your neck. Just like he said, when you had to put a chair, it goes so far that you had to put a chair up so guys won't even, like, be tempted to talk to you in some type of fashion. You got 2 minutes? Jerry telling you got 2 minutes. Like, they put this 15-minute thing on the phone.
All right, we're back, everybody. I know I'd like to take a moment or two to remind you all that we're calling from prison phones, so we have 15-minute limits, and whenever you hear Gina, this call is being recorded, or this.
Exactly.
You have 1 minute remaining, or whatever she says. When she says that, it's because she's letting us know we're at our 15-minute call's almost up. So I'd like to thank you for putting up with all our bullshit. I know sometimes our podcasts are choppy and the audio is fucked up, or you can't hear 7. But thank you for still sticking in there with us. We're doing our best.
I know you can hear me. Definitely.
So back to the visits or the lack thereof.
Hey, so look,
earlier,
I would like to.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, I want to say some shit, right? All right, well, all these limitations on visits and stuff like that, and with like the correspondence, like the mail, stuff like that, it puts like stress and strain on relationships, whether it's like with a child or your like people that you haven't seen in a while, or your wife and shit like your significant other and stuff like that. It puts stress and strain on it. So you have to have a strong bond. And you have to like really like have a powerful like relationship when it comes to those type of like those disconnects. When those disconnects are being implemented, it's like obstacles, so you have to overcome. So it's kind of hard to try to keep together like a relationship in this predicament.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what I've noticed. So there's like this thing that I see, like right about the 20-year mark, everybody starts falling off. So early on, like you might have your family, like my family's great. They love me. They've always supported me. But, and you know, and over the years, like when I first, maybe 10 years, they came up all the time, see me all the time as much as they could. And I call home, and I was calling home back when calls were sometimes $8 for 15 minutes. So imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the system wears them down. It just grinds them down. And the way I see it, usually around the 20-year mark, everyone's family are just like, fuck, I've had enough of that shit. I just can't do it no more. They're tired. Yeah, they grind them down with the bullshit. Like the phones, like these phones, we call 15 minutes. Half the time you can't hear, or they blink in and out, or, I mean, listener, the listener, you understand, sometimes I'll be talking and then you can't hear me. That's these fucking phones.
Yeah,
they blink out. So it's the same way when I'm talking to my
payphone.
Yeah, it's the same way when I'm talking to my mom. And everything is about money. These calls right now, every call, this podcast, it took us 3 calls. We had to pay. Red Zone has to pay for every one of these calls. If I want to send a friend or a family member an email, I have to pay, what is that, 28 cents, I think? I have to pay 28 cents for every email. It might be 30 or 40, whatever it is. I have to pay
something
for
like
every
that.
fucking... Yeah, that shit's expensive for an email.
An
email for something that's free to everyone else.
Most definitely.
It's absolutely insane. And then, but a lot of states that, I wouldn't even say it's a conspiracy. It's flat out right out in the open. It's not even a conspiracy. They do it. It's intentional, and it's done with the purpose of driving profits. And these giant companies, they lobby to keep people in prison longer. They lobby for longer. When you see these ads run during the political campaign time, the lock them up, throw away the key ads, who do you think that's being paid for? The prison industrial complex.
I didn't see that.
I didn't see that. That shit. I mean,
that's
imagine. Let's flip the script. Let's say you and I are running a company, and our company is selling shoes to a prison system. We need more people in there. So we're going to compile, election season. We're going to back the person that wants to keep people in prison, and we're going to spend money to tell the public, run commercials and ads and social media shit that says, hey, we need to keep these people, these monsters,
keep their ass in there.
Yeah, these basket of deplorables, we got to keep them in there, and all that kind of bullshit. It's all about money.
You know what that is, man. Capitalism, man.
Yeah, capitalism at its finest.
Most definitely.
Capitalism isn't always a good thing. Listen, I'm a pure capitalist. I'm about hustling, right? But I don't believe in making money off somebody else's back, which is what they do on the plantation. We're slaves. We're literally slaves, and that's the way we're treated.
Yeah, them guys on that. They own that. They believe in all that. Any means, by any means. They try to get that motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, I have limitations on my hustle. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Get money, but I want to get it.
You have a conscience.
Yeah. I want to feel good. At the end of the night, like we said, it's like me running the store. I only charge 33%. I know it still sounds like a lot, but the norm, everyone else in prison charges 50%.
They charge a half.
They charge half. That's right. So, I mean, I do what's best for me. It pisses off all the other store guys. They hate me because I'm cheaper than them. But, hey, it is what it is. Everyone has to do what makes them feel best.
Most definitely. That's all it is. You got morals, moral compass, principles. That's all it is.
That's why we got to get out of prison.
Those.
We have to get out of prison, and we have to fight to change this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're fighting right now. But when we're free, it's going to be so much easier to put up a fight because we can go places and talk to people and explain situations and tell them how horrible they really are and why and what it does.
Most definitely. Without restrictions or limitations.
Should be a thing. Family should be able to come in and have a flipping picnic with you. You say, might be listening and say, that's crazy. Well, your family, for many, many years, used to be able to come to prison, and they would bring a picnic basket and go outside and sit and eat with you. That was back when Michigan was about rehabilitation, where they had this punishment-based system. But it worked. Our recidivism rates were way lower back then, way lower. It ain't like there's a different class of criminal now. Criminals are criminals. They don't get worse as time goes on. Just the way society treats them changes. Our case, by we I mean convicts, the slaves here on the plantation, we need to be rotated into a rehabilitation-based system. We need to be connected with the community. We need to feel a part of that community. We need to be able to hug people, have people tell us, hey, you're wanted back and we love you. These things are normalcy. Right, normalcy. A normal normalcy, not a prison normalcy like shitting in the bathroom and having a conversation with somebody. Or a normal where violence is how you deal with all your problems.
Right, most definitely.
People always say, well, there's rules against that. You're protected. Well, I'll tell you what. If you go to one of the officers and say, hey, I was just robbed, and he'd say, what? You go beat the guy's ass. What's Right.
Well, what you telling me for? Like, what you telling me for?
Yeah. They expect these things. You're constantly on the lookout, and if somebody does come to do you harm, you have to do them the maximum amount of harm possible because you have to protect your life.
Example. And you got to set an example.
Fucking normal. That's not normal. Yeah. We shouldn't have to live in an environment like that. Prison should be about rehabilitation. It shouldn't be about coming here and it's a gladiator school and you just got to fight and hope that you survive. Like, I'm covered in scars, literally, from years and years of prison. I've been stabbed. I've been clunked on the head. I've been cut. I've been fucking, jumped. I've been in gang fights where motherfuckers jump on. You name it, I've been through it. In self-defense, I've done many of those things in return to survive. Not out of some sense of pleasure, just simply to survive.
Because you're back against the wall. You're scared. Like, at that point, I'm threatened. I'm threatened for my life. It's my life. It's either mine or yours.
Right. Well, when you're in your cell and 2 or 3 guys run up in there, you're fighting for your life. You're literally fighting for your life. That point. So if you're forced to hurt people really bad. Because in that situation, you can't be like, hey, guys, let's talk about
Can't talk it out. Nah, can't talk it out. Ain't no talking at this point.
Yeah, or you're in the shower and you get jumped. You're completely naked. Imagine how defenseless you feel.
Helpless.
Like with me, a rage comes out of me because I'm trying to survive. And I've been in that exact situation. I was jumped in the shower and I did what I had to do.
And it get real.
That is not normal.
It gets real.
And in them other countries where I talked about, those things don't happen. If you're in there with a bunch of maniacs and murderers, it has to happen. But it doesn't. In the proper environment, it does not happen. Anyways, we're out of time, Seven. Take us out of here, man. What do we do here live from the plantation?
We break the chains. You break the chains, man.
Break the chains.
Thanks for tuning in again for another great episode of Live from the Plantation. XB3, the Red Zone. Subscribe. Don't cheat yourself. Treat yourself. Flat out.